brief announcements today. Please silence your phones if you're in the room and mute your microphone if you're at home. As mentioned in a recent Heartwood communication, Heartwood has been closed until September 29th due to a recent COVID exposure. So all Dharma will continue on Zoom and YouTube until the 29th, at which time safety for reopening will be reassessed. We do still have the plan to hold a retreat on the 30th called Objectless Concentration, and we'll keep you posted if there are any changes to that, the plans for that retreat. The novena prayers for September will occur this week, so please go ahead and send in your prayer request to prayer@heartwoodrefuge.org. And these can be prayers for yourself or a pet, suffering, departed. Just please send them to us, and we will hold them in our prayers during that ceremony. Thrifty Treasures continues to need volunteers. If anyone is interested in doing that, please reach out to us. What's the email address, Thrifty?
thriftytreasureswnc@gmail.com.
thriftytreasureswnc@gmail.com. All right, thank you. And just continue to please like, follow, and share Thrifty Treasures and Heartwood Refuge on social media to help us spread the Dharma. Thank you so much. And Venerable is walking up right now. Thanks.
We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage, we offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage, we offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. Good morning. I'm smiling because I'm not sure where I'm going today because I got three different, distinct messages to share. So buckle up and try to keep up with me. And don't be confused. Just grab the part that's for you. You know, when we're in a room like this, I often say that if you read the discourses and you look at the title of the discourse and say, oh, I want to read about that, I want to study that, right? And you get into it and you say, what does this have to do with the title? You know, there might be one sentence in that discourse over 4 or 5 or 6 pages somewhere that reference, that you can make a reference or connection to the title, but for the most part, they're talking about something else. And so it occurred to me that, you know, uh, in these discourses, we have to recognize that he was speaking to the people who were present. We are getting it secondhand after the fact, or maybe third or fourth hand, but he was speaking to the individuals that were there. However many individuals were there, that's how many different minds were there, how many different mind streams were there, how many different ways of understanding something or even hearing something was there. And so, what prajna does is it allows it to come forth so that each mind gets what they came there to get, or gets what is needful or is needed to help them take the very next step. And so sometimes it appears uh, when one is teaching that it's like all over the place, but it's not that. It's just like not everything is for you at this time. Take the thing that is for you and just chew on that, and that way we will move away from things being so topical, because life is not topical, but we like things in a certain order. We like them, we just like it organized a certain way, but life is not organized like that. And so we have to develop the capacity to rise to the occasion, to rise to the moment, whatever the moment brings, that we don't have any preconceived notion of how it should be, so that we can be open to just how it is, and we can flow in that. And there's a way that we can flow in just how things are. And it's not with a dissatisfaction, nor is it with an being overly elated, because if you get too happy, when I used to do the I Ching, and it has the 64 hexagrams, you know, when I would before I understood, what the message was, I would love to get a 64, because 64 is completion. That means, though, that's the best it's gonna get. So whatever comes next, you know, is going to be less than the best. So I was always hoping for a 64 until I understood that. And then I said, oh, no, I don't want a 64. I want things to get better and better and better. So it's something like that when we come to the Dharma. We're looking for a 64. But a 64, if you understand cause and condition, or you understand the movement of things, then you know that after that's going to come, if there's been a grasping, a clinging, a great joyousness around something, that what's going to come after that is going to be more difficult to bear. And so if we recognize that, then we can hold fast to not fastening to things as they arise. Then we won't be disappointed when they leave, because the reality is that everything is impermanent. There is the coming and the going. So I don't know what that has to do, because that one really wasn't the topic. Um, I want to start with uh, the the greater discourse at Asapura in Majjhima Nikaya number 39. And this is one where the Buddha was actually teaching his recluses. We call ourselves monks, and some call us nuns now, because it's sort of like a priestcraft now. But they were recluses, one who had withdrawn from the world. And when I say withdrawn, I don't mean like fake withdrawn. I'm talking about real withdrawn. They gave up everything, everything. down to their spouses, their children, their property, their money, their businesses, everything, and put on uh, the robe of of a wanderer, only in search of uh, awakening. They totally renounced um, everything in this world. So he said, recluses, how is it that people perceive you? And when you are asked, what are you? You claim that you're recluses. Since that is what you are designated and what you claim to be, you should train yourselves thus. We will undertake a practice to practice those things which make one a recluse, that makes one a Brahman, so that our designations may be true and our claims genuine, and so that the services of those who provide robes, alms, food, resting place, and medicinal requisites um, will receive great fruit and great benefit, so that our going forth shall not be in vain, but be fruitful and be fertile. And what are the things that makes one a recluse? You should train yourselves thus. We will be possessed of shame and fear of wrongdoing. Now, because you might think thus, we are possessed of shame and fear of wrongdoing. That much is enough. That much has been done. The goal of recluseship has been reached. There's nothing more for us to do, and you may rest content with that much. Because I inform you, I declare to you, you who seek reclusive status do not fall short of the goal while there's more to be done. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about is um, one will be possessed of shame and fear of wrongdoing. And so um, I wanted to talk about this because it seems like it's not in the Dharma or the Buddha Dharma, Shakyamuni's Dharma, about the fear of wrongdoing, but it is absolutely there. So, like if you just did a search of fear of wrongdoing, you find it all through the teachings. But if you can understand what the admonition is, what fear of wrongdoing is, it's something that's designed to help you reach your goal. There is a manner of teaching and a manner of speaking that says, like, if you cross that line, you're done for. Just forget about it. You know, uh, and it's like extreme, but it's extreme because it's highlighting the very seriousness of the not the vows we take, but the reason that we took certain vows. Whatever vows you take as a layperson, as a 10 precept holder, or as a full bhikkhu or bhikkhuni, there are certain vows we take, but we take them for a reason. And if we're not careful, we won't think that much of it. We, especially when we think we're doing more than other people are doing. So compared to them, I'm doing a lot. I've taken on a lot. I've given up a lot. But people, other people, they are not our standard. Our standard is the vow that we take, and our standard is the conduct of a Buddha. That's our standard. And so we have to be examining ourselves from that standpoint. When I was raising my children, I'm sorry, I just tell you the truth, I put the fear of God in them. And when I said don't do something, they knew I meant don't do it. And if I said there was a consequence, you could bet that there was a consequence. But the outcome of that is that my children learned early on how to conduct themselves. I mean, and in such a wonderful way, how they bring a certain sweetness and a certain maturity and a certain respect and a certain um, appreciation, I would say, uh, because I instructed them and I left them no wiggle room. So I look sometimes today at children and how the parents are raising the children. They tell me that they're little people. No, they're not little people, they're children. And it's my job as a parent to train them up in the way that they should go. And then when they're old, they won't depart from that way, but they're like, they have rights. They have, they can tell you what they want. They get uh, served first. But I trained my children to make sure that their mother and their father got, what did I say to, sorry, vegetarians, got the big piece of chicken. I don't make sure that they were taken care of before you sit down to eat, because you didn't work for any of it. It's all free to you. And then when you're old and you have children, they'll treat you the same way, because that's the way you'll train them. And so I see all of this angst in families now, because they raise their children as if they were, God's gift to the world, and they don't know. Whoops, sorry, they don't know how to handle. They don't know how to handle not being first. They don't know how to handle not getting everything they want. They don't know how. They don't know what humility is. They don't know how to offer respect to their elders. They don't know. They don't know these things, but it's not their fault. And so, how you bring up your child is how they will go in the world. Sometimes they rebel when they're at that age. When mine felt like, they didn't have to keep a curfew, it's time to get your own place. Then you can come and go whenever you want. But as long as you're staying here, I don't care if you're 27. If I say the doors are locked at midnight at 27, you need to be home at midnight, not crawling around the street like some night bug. But if you don't like that, no problem. You can just get your own place and you can stay out all night long if you want to. And so the Buddha is very firm on this. We think he was just so soft in his speech, so accommodating, so understanding. But I doubt if any of us could have made it in Buddha's camp. Because our determination is not that strong. And so it's important for us to have a voice from time to time that says, get it together and stop faking. Then have a voice from time to time to say, is this truly your desire? To have a voice sometimes that says, if you want to get there, it's going to take, a little bit more muscle. To have a voice sometimes, though, that says, make sure you put first things first. So we go around picking the things that we're gonna work on. I won't have an afternoon meal, but I won't do what I need to do to crush my hating mind. I'm like, that's a big thing. I'm just gonna sacrifice an afternoon meal. See what a great practitioner I am. Things like that. Now I'm having a serious conversation today because we're coming up upon something, and as we come up upon it, we need to be ready. We need to be ready to meet it if we want to have success at it. And so he began to talk to them, and he talked about our conduct being purified and clear and open and being flawless. He talked about us being restrained and not lauding ourselves and disparaging others on account of that rule that we do keep that somebody else doesn't keep. You see, he was leveling the playing field and saying, don't compare yourself to anybody else. Just what is your great wish? And this is what it's going to take to get there. And you can decide how high you want to go, or how far you want to go, or how wide you want to go, or how deep you want to go, whichever way you can relate to that, But he tells us not to fool ourselves, not to fall short of the goal. And so this ties in with the concept of being void of an ego, the void of the experience of an I and a mind. And when we have the mindfulness and wisdom to extinguish dukkha, then that becomes the cure for our spiritual disease. You could think of it like uh, the the ego or the our mind is kind of like a virus, you know, and the virus actually has no life. Did you know that a virus is not really a bio thing? It has no life until it attaches, until there's a attachment to a host, and it takes the life of the host. It and then it eats up the host, and the host dies. That's what ego is. That's what the concept of an I and a self is. And the Dharma is like an antibody that if you inject yourself with the antibody based on the strength of the antibody, based on the purity of the antibody, based on the concentration of the antibody, then you are protected from that virus. And uh, and I like that analogy. I got it from Heartwood of the Bodhi tree. I thought it was a good analogy that whenever I am slipping, when I'm falling back into the self, I can think about the virus and look at how crafty the virus is. You know how it has the capacity to mutate into another strain and another strain and another strain, and every time we um, uh, subdue, uproot even some part of our self-seeking um, nature, it comes back in another form. It comes back in another way. And so it's like our work is never done until it's done. Yeah. And so when we see uh, some part of ourselves. And he says that that's what dukkha is, the suffering is actually this idea or this understanding or this concept that there is this individual I. Now, it's very difficult to say, I am not sitting in this chair talking to you. And when we start thinking about in an ultimate sense, an emptiness, we're not saying that there is not this form, because there is form. There is not name and form. There's not form, feeling, perception, consciousness. There are all of these things. But if you could imagine, I think I gave the analogy in Thursday's class. Um, in India, where they have the Bodhi tree. The Bodhi tree is made of thick vines, and the vines intertwine and wrap around each other, and they form a trunk that can hold this huge, huge, huge tree. But the thing is that if you can stick your hand inside, and it's hollow, there's no solidity to the trunk. The trunk is hollow on the inside, and yet there is this form on the outside that makes it appear like a solid tree. So it's not thinking, oh, like blink, I'll disappear, or I'll disappear you, that you don't exist. Not in that way, but in recognize that all we attribute to ourselves or to others is wrapped up in some notion of clinging to something. This is how you can understand it. Have you ever had a time, and that this is all rooted in the mind? In the mind. Have you ever had a time when you were like just sitting, maybe on the porch? You might be rocking in a swing, um, and you're there in a very relaxed space, nothing really on your mind, and you sort of like um, you're in a perfect place. There's like a perfect peace. There's no agitation. there's no anger, and there's no joy. There's almost like nothing. And for a minute, you even lose yourself. Sometimes you lose your sense of surrounding in those pockets of self consciousness falling away. But then something will come to your mind, or then you'll see a butterfly, or then, the mind attaches to something and you're back. And when one does this enough times, they begin to see something. They begin to see how the mind really controls all that we call our world. What we wrap that mind around, what we attach to, what we fixate over, what we have a craving for, what we have an aversion to. And we start to see that all dharmas are mind made. So this is an intermediate step that we can take, that we can touch again and again, because you have to like taste this. He said it has to be tasted. You can't like read about it. You can't read about it. Say, oh yeah, I get this, because that's not the same thing. The map is not the territory. You can look at a map all day long and never have an experience. I remember when I went to China, and it was great because we had a guide. But some people had those, you buy the map of India, the map of Italy, the map, and you have this guide, and it says where to visit, and it gives you some little information on how to negotiate things, and that's written on paper, and that's all well good. Go over there and try that, see how that works for you. But there comes places that you need to have a living guide. And not only a living guide, but you need to have a guide who's more than a guide who not only speaks the language but fully understands the culture. A guide who can, when the police pull you over and have everybody get off the bus, that guide has already figured out what it's going to take. He says, "Okay, guys, we're coming up against blah blah stop." About 2 blocks away, past the hat. We pass the hat, and everybody puts well, how do you say it? Yuan in it. That's Chinese money. And when we get there and the police gets on the bus, he gets off with the police and has a conversation. Next thing you know, something's passing hands, and our buses pass through, and everybody else is standing out in the street, their luggage being gone through and all of that. So it takes having that guide and having the right guide, the guide who knows how to maneuver, in every situation. So the map is not the territory. We need more than the map. We need the direct experience of things. And we have them. That's the good news. We have them all the time if we had enough mindfulness to connect the dots. Mindfulness was never intended to help us to be happier with our things. Mindfulness was about the mindfulness that all things are inherently empty, and that it's only our attachment to it from a space or a sense of having a separate identity that we create the dukkha in our lives. So the only one who can get rid of the dukkha in our lives is ourselves. We have to get rid of our own dukkha. When we talk about the perfections, the and the and perfect virtue, that's found in the voidness. So this perfect mindfulness, is there's the perfect sense of shame about doing wrong. There's the perfect fear of doing evil. There's the perfect patience and endurance. There's a perfect gentleness. There's a perfect gratitude. There's a perfect honesty. And when these come together, or when they're functioning in a high level, then there is knowledge and vision according to reality and not how we want to put our world together. You know, I believe that everyone here is going for the goal. I believe that everyone here is putting forth their uh, the best effort that they know. This is not an indictment against your effort. This is to say, don't look at the like the water station. You know how when you have people running and they're running a marathon, and they pull over and grab some water. But that's not the goal. That's not the goal line. That's just the water station. You have to keep going. Or when the race cars are on the track and they pull off into the pit stop because they blew a tire. They know they can't finish to the goal line with a blown tire. So although they don't want to pull off, they have to pull off and let that tire get yanked off and a new one put on. They have to, go into the cripple shop, and get fixed. But they don't stay there. They get right back on the road and they keep going. This is how we have to be, how we have to have the tenacity, how we have to have the strength, how we have to have a true vision of what is path. And then when we have that, nothing stops us. Even if we have to pull off to the side and regroup, even if we have to stop and chug down some water, even if we have to change a flat tire. I remember there's this story, and I take it as my story too, because I understand it. The musician was playing at the opera house or whatever, and he just played so beautifully, and everybody was yay, stood up and give him a standing ovation, people clapping everywhere, high people from the state, wealthy people, everybody just giving him accolades and throwing roses up there and all that, and he wasn't paying attention to one of them. His eye was looking for his teacher, and then he honed right in on his teacher, where his teacher, and he was just looking for the nod of approval from his teacher. What's that? That was the only voice that mattered to him, the one who truly knew whether he was excellent or not. And so we need to let the Dharma be our teacher in that way. The teacher that loves us, the teacher that wouldn't take us in a wrong direction, the teacher that says sometimes gently and sometimes with force and with strength. Don't let that stop you right there. The one that understands deeply, that which hinders and that which corrupts and that which pollutes, and shows us a path of purification that leads to an unbinding and a true freedom from the inside out. I'm talking about. I mean, you can kick me down, but you sure can't keep me down. I can tell you that. And it's not because there's any strength in Panyawadi, because when Panyawadi is weak, then I am strong. When Panyawadi is strong, I am weak. And that's the confidence that we can have in the Dharma, in us. So I like this sutta because he talks about what more needs to be done than walking around looking. 39. Mm-hmm. Asking, what more needs to be done than just being possessed of shame and fear of wrongdoing. And he says, you should train yourselves thus. Our verbal conduct shall be purified. Our bodily conduct shall be purified. our mental conduct shall be purified. And he says that when one has an aspiration for that true purification, holding nothing back, and he says, what more is to be done? You should train yourselves thus. Who should train you? We should train ourselves. Yeah. We will guard the doors of our sense faculty. On seeing a form with the eye, we will not grasp at its signs and its features. This is the way that we train ourselves. And actually, it's a very gentle and it's a gradual way. Because when one gets that in their mind, I will not grasp after things that I see. I will not grasp after things that I love the taste of. I will not grasp after what I want to hear. I will not. Once that's in you, it's like a broken record. It'll just keep going on repeat, loop-de-loop, just like something else right now, maybe like a broken record, going loop-de-loop, loop-de-loop, you know. But when we understand that repetitious, sometimes repetitious appreciation, and sometimes that repetitious focus or allowance on some thought produces a habitual tendency, we know that we have it, but we can't just say, oh, no, like that's my habitual tendency. You have to uproot that, and the only way to uproot it is to replace it with something else. So every time that thought comes, one could counter that thought, that unskillful, that one that keeps looping around. Like it could be that I'm better than others. You know that's not a right thought. I'm worse than others. You know that that's not a right thought. Whatever I'm in, we have going on at that moment. I was talking with someone, and she's a very accomplished woman, and she speaks of her insecurities, and that when she's around others, she sees things rise up. Sometimes it's conceit because she knows she's better than some of the others in her field, and then, but more often because she was taught through her cultural influence to always excel, to be the highest, to be the best. She finds herself comparing herself to those who, in her eyes, are better than she is. So while there is some sense of conceit for one, she knows she's superior in her skills too, and that's a real thing. Maybe the superiority in skill, but there doesn't have to be any conceit about it. But she may be inferior to some whose skills are greater than hers, and she doesn't have to have a sense of inferiority about it. She can work to improve them if it's possible. It may not be possible. She might have, like I'm never going to be a rocket scientist. So I know that. So I'll invest my effort at something else that I can be better at, that I can be good at. I don't have to try to do that now. And then a rocket scientist always needs an assistant. So if I'm only capable of being his assistant, I could just be that. And I have to say, well, I'm secondary because he's the rocket scientist, because I know rocket scientists can't do what he does without the assistance of his assistants. So that makes me, that levels the playing field. So I don't have to think about superiority or inferiority. I just need to do my job. And so if we start looking at things in this way, we won't, that sense of ego will begin to diminish. It will, and after a while, it will go away. And when you have a group of people organized around a purpose, and everybody is thinking like that, then we don't have to spend so much time working with hurt feelings, getting over hurt feelings, feeling somebody's more important, feeling like somebody's less important. All of that goes out the window, and our time is freed up to be in the moment, seeking to serve who we will and who we can. Our energy It's a misappropriation of our energy, of our life force, of our intellect. So it talks about one of an understanding temperament. If you could understand it in this way, you could take out all the spirituality if you want and just talk about what's expedient so that one is not all tied up and fettered to things so that one can move like a fish. You ever see the school of fish when they move? I mean, they must get the signal in a nanosecond because when that lead fish switches, just like they just go like that. You know, it's not like one's going this way, one haven't made a complete turn yet. You know, it's but they can like move just like that, and there's a power in that, and there's a victory in that. But when we all become like our own little individual fishies in a pond, it might look pretty, you know, to see them floating all over the place, but not much can be done. They're just lazing around in the pond. And so this kind of clarity comes to us when we get the kind of Dharma that just really lays it out for us, you know, where the rubber meets the road. When we can be mature enough to hear it and to receive it and to understand it and to experience it. And that's where the Sangha comes in the company of the Sangha, who are moving, you know, in one accord doesn't just mean, you know, our niceties towards one another. One accord doesn't just mean that. But one accord means having the same goal and allowing the Dharma to lead us. And you know, so sometimes we have to look and go, look deeply at what we say we want. And we have to ask ourselves, do we really want it? It's a terrible thing to want something, to have a craving for something. And it's like being on a treadmill and you running and running and running and running and never getting any closer to your goal. You know, so then we just start pretending that we're near our goal, you know, and this is good enough. And we tell each other that, and we all agree, and so we create something. But when something else comes and it reminds us that there's a lot further to go, then we step off that treadmill and we get to step in. I had a treadmill one time. I like the ones that you turn on, you know, electrical, and they go by themselves, you know, and you like kind of keep up. Too fast, you can slow it down. But they have other kinds, they're manual. You have to get it started. You have to, you know, you get it started and you keep it going. You know, like I didn't want that one. You know, I wanted one that would like run for me. No, but this is a path where we have to run for ourselves. I don't know about you, but I'm running for my life. I'm running to find life. It's funny about how worldly language or worldly speak is so different from spiritual talk. It's like we think about living now and death comes. And because that's our view, that's how the Dharma first speaks to us. But as we go on, we start to see it turn around, like we like the Walking Dead, you know, and we're heading towards life. And that's not a thing you can explain, but it is something that one can know. This unbinding is not nihilism, extinguishment, nothingness. It is not that. So you don't have to be afraid. And you can tell that it can't be, because the more of the Dharma you transform into, the more invigorated you are, the clearer you can see. The more, everything is in an uptick, you know. So how is it that we be upticking, and get to the goal and it's flat and it's dead? That's just a trick of the mind not wanting to let go of something that we have found. It's like the monkey. There was a song by, I forget who they were, the Funkadelics or something, back in the 60s. It was the goose that laid the golden egg. It was an extraordinary goose, yeah? And then he said, can you imagine a goose that lays a golden egg? It's a dream come true. And he went on and said, and I'm as happy as a monkey in a peanut machine, something like that. And all I could see was this image of a monkey who stuck his hand machine to get the peanuts and couldn't get his hand out because he couldn't let go of the peanuts to pull his hand out. And that's how we are sometimes, you know. And we stick our hand into what life says that we need to be happy, to be secure. I know plenty of people who got money ain't secure at all. I know plenty of people who have status and feel insecure and inferior. I know plenty of people, anything that this world can give you, and they're the most unhappy people. But we're talking about something that this world can't give you, so it can't take it away. And it's rare to encounter a Dharma, a true teaching. They say even in a whatever it is, 100 million kalpas, long time. So don't squander your life and don't miss this opportunity. Well, it's 12:53, and I think actually that this goes in a lot of different places, but I want to leave it right there, because after that it goes into the abandoning of the hindrances. What more is to be done? The abandoning of the hindrances. And I also want to say something about taking things literally and not having enough wisdom to put them into time and context. It says, what more to be done? Here, bhikkhus, you should resort to a secluded resting place, the forest, the root of a tree, mountain, a ravine, a hillside cave, a charnel ground, a cemetery, a jungle thicket, an open space, a heap of straw. And on returning from alms rounds, sit down and spend the rest of your day meditating. So while we're priding ourselves on the things that we do, how many of us are sleeping outside, sleeping in the cemetery? No, so don't take everything literally. Seize the most important things. Different time, different space, different climate, different culture. Now, I'm not even so sure we shouldn't get rid of the robes, because the robes there didn't make them look different. They all wore that. They still wear it today. So when we look very different, then actually, it's a standout. I don't know how much egolessness, one can accomplish with that. So the robes have their place as a sense of home and a sense of protection for us, but it should have no outer significance to us at all. Think deeply about these kinds of things and see where one is stuck. I like the way you got that tied up right there. I do. I like that. See where you're stuck. That's all I'm saying. And I'm ready to go. If anybody's going with me, let's go. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you and no danger. May you always be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life. Can I see who's? Oh, okay. All right, that's all right. Okay, great. Thank you all for tuning in today. I'll see you on Tuesday.